Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins, broadcasting from Little Old Merritt, British Columbia, my small town that I moved to. And so what is going on, guys? There's a lot going on. I'm getting a ton of messages today. This is from CBC News. And I left the big city to move to a small town, tiny town, Merritt, 7,000 people. And there's no traffic, no headaches, the cost of living is a lot less. That's my opinion. But posted today on CBC, it's a little bit different, apparently. Even in an affordable Canadian city, cost of living squeeze has people putting pressure on politicians. So what is going on here? Cost of living is a big federal election issue, even in places where daily expenses are lower than average. So, small towns, out-of-the-way places. I guess if you're an hour, 2 hours away from a major international airport, you're considered kind of way out of the way, right? Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu lies in the banks of picturesque river, about an hour's drive from Montreal. Its main street, a collection of charming cafes and historic storefronts. There are many lists of Canada's most affordable cities based on different criteria, and Saint-Jean ends up on nearly every one. But even so, people are feeling the pinch. That's because the cost of living in this city is affordable. City of nearly 100,000 is still only 3% below the national average, according to the figures compiled by global relocation firm Salary Expert. Anxiety about the cost of living consistently polls as the top issue in this campaign, says CBC political analyst Eric Greener. Canadians report concern over the cost of groceries and fuel in particular. Household expenses for the average Canadian have been climbing from food and fuel to the house prices and rent. For every Canadian dollar earned, they owe the average $1.77. So here's what's going on. People have been borrowing to meet their consumption. And you know what politicians say? Oh, this generation is comfortable, is more comfortable with credit compared to the older generations. No. Debt's debt. Debt is a debt. Household expenses for the average Canadian have been climbing from food. So we got this already. We talked about this. The average Canadians earn, they owe the average of $177. That debt continues to grow. All of which is making the cost of living a big issue heading into the federal election, according to the CBC Commission poll. That's the case even in this Quebec community, where residents typically face less financial pressure than many of their fellow Canadians. Small edge. On the surface, much about Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu is unremarkable. The median age is 42, compared to Canada's 41. Individual income averages $34,058, about $150 less than the rest of the country. Ultimately, though, it comes down not just to how much you make, but how much you spend. And this community has a small edge. And that's what I keep saying. It's not how much you make, it's what you spend, guys. It's very important. And nowadays, people are taking loans for everything, for a microwave, a dishwasher, a car. They take a loan for everything. A blender. We have low housing prices, said City Councillor Marilyn Chamberneau. A high quality of life that is still affordable. The average home purchase price in the community is $315 compared to the Canadian average of $480. So for me, it was different. See, I'm 2.5 hours away from Vancouver, but the thing is, the average house in Vancouver benchmark was about $1.4 million when I left for pretty much a teardown, and I ended up buying this beautiful, luxurious, huge. It's not luxurious, but it's a huge house, enough for me to raise my family for around 260,000, right? So, mind you, the median price of housing has gone up because of people like myself that came from the coast. And people need to stop blaming me or the people moving into town for making these prices go up, right? I tried to look for an article earlier and I couldn't find it. I don't know if they took it down. Here it is. So, when Canada brings in 500,000 lucrative rich Chinese per year, and Canada's competing for Chinese lucrative tourist business and spend money in Canada, the Canadian proper can't compete with lucrative rich Chinese. You know, with all the money laundering propping up the economy, this is a massive issue. 500,000 per year, and they're looking at they're setting up more offices to fast track more Chinese citizens, and they're fast tracking them to become future Canadian citizen. They're creating more offices in China to get them over here as fast as possible. But it's not just Canada that's been doing this. Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom. United Kingdom was ahead of everybody for this, but this is very important. This is one major reason. Then it's the money laundering coming from China, from the fentanyl and all that other crap. And then it's the shadow flipping happening from Chinese investors flipping back and forth. And then it's the money laundering from casinos. And then it's the money laundering in the... So there's a lot going on, and they've been basically taking Canada for a ride, is what's been happening, right? I mean, everyone comes to Canada like we came to Canada. I'm a Portuguese, right? And tons of us get deported all the time. We're not really welcome here in Canada. But, I mean, look it up in 2006, 7, 8, and 9. How many Portuguese were deported from Canada? You'd be like, what? You know, it makes Donald Trump's whole deportation of Mexicans look like a walk in the park once you realize how bad it was. But anyways, I'm not gonna stray off topic. So, high employment rates help to make a home price to household income ratio of 4.24, half of what. So the 4.24 is kind of in the dangerous level. You saw what happened in Portland, Oregon, when the household income ratio just went over 4%. A lot of people just moved east to Utah and Arizona and New Mexico. Once it passes 4, it's the tipping point for a crash, and that's what happened to Oregon. That's why everybody fled Oregon just about a year and a half ago when it just passed 4 times. So it's 4.24, half of what is in many other cities. That makes homeownership an option earlier in life, right? Plus, paying off the mortgage possible much sooner, allowing residents to allocate more of their income to other expenses and or savings. I like when I had a couple of, I think it was Supreme Cannon was on the show. We were talking about how it takes the person with the average income in Vancouver of, I think it was 56,000 or 66,000. It was 66,000 a year. The person with the average income needs to save for 18 years to put a down payment down. So it's like you're 20, 22, you're out of college, and you'd be like, okay, son. You put your arm around your son and say, go out and work. And in 20, 22 years, you'd be almost 50. You'll be able to put down a down payment on a house. And then you can start a family when you're 60. And you'll be good. You know what I'm saying? So, it's an economic advantage many residents are well aware. Annis Burrow has lived in many places, and the most recent of her 22 moves was to this community. And when she asked if she'll ever move again, she replied, very direct, hopefully not. Other costs are low in Sunjin borders, very vast farmland that supplies inexpensive fresh produce for months of the year. This is important. People need to eat, right? Plus, childcare is not a crushing expensive due to a large provincial subsidies, and most people like Burrow would pay $21.95 per day per child. Wow, that's a walk in the park. I know people that pay $1,500, $1,600 a month for childcare here. That's about as low as $8.05. In other provinces, daycare rates at least double or triple if spots are even available. Wow. I think it's really sad to think that families have to worry so much, says Burrow, of places where daycare is so much more expensive and harder to find. We've heard of families in other provinces who waited till the first child was in school before they had a second. That's something we don't even think about here. Yeah, I see. That's why I had my kids right away. Once we got our house, we settled. We had our last child, and we made sure... I made sure, like, I wanted to get this working for me and my family, and I had to leave the big city. I had no choice in the matter. If I wanted to have disposable income at the end of the month, if I wanted to be more free, that's what I was looking at, a small town. The majority of those who live in French-speaking community also work here, making the commute not only easy, but coming home for a lunch routine. Yeah, I could walk to work every day if I don't go up to the hill to get coffee, you know. For those who don't work locally, the city has a busy and sleek bus terminal with a 40-minute dedicated lane service to downtown Montreal. Regular commuters pay as little as $8 a round trip, a comparable ride in a neighborhood in southern Ontario's GO Transit for $18. And since residents live outside the major city, but far enough not to be considered a suburb, car insurance rates are lower in many comparable communities. I pay like $900 a year for car insurance, full coverage. $900 a year, full coverage. My van is a 2014, and my wife's car is a 2017, and that's less. That's like $790 a year. Of course, in Saint Jean, it's not a utopia. Public transport is not accessible, especially for people not going downtown, says Burrow. So we have to have 2 cars just to get around. Once we've paid for that, it feels like there's not much left. That's why you buy a car for $3,000 that's in good condition. This way, in 5 years, you could sell the car back for $3,000 if you keep it in good condition. That's why you don't buy a new car and then you lose value off the top and you never get back. You know, this way, if you buy a car for $3,000, there's a very good chance you could sell it back for the same price in 3 years and then buy something a little bit newer. Councillor Cahor-Burno commutes daily to Montreal, but admits she'd like to see the government invest more in transit, put more money into other forms of active transportation to allow residents to move easily without using their cars through the city. Quebec continues to offer generous rebates on the purchases of new electric vehicles, but for those who still can't afford one, gas prices are among the nation's highest, often 12 cents more than next door in Ontario. But Ontario, they pay $14,000 a year for property tax for a 3,000 square foot home in Toronto. So they're paying through the nose in Ontario, right? And all the services and incentives need to be paid for, which explains why Quebecers have shouldered the highest tax burden in the country since 1982. Tax are by far a single large expenditure of our family. An individual living in Quebec earning $50 large would pay $10,380 in combined federal and provincial tax, according to the tax calculator developed by Thomson Reuters. In Ontario, the burden would be $8,660, or the Yukon would be $8,309. Mind you, in the Yukon, you're going to require a big truck, probably running on diesel. It's going to be a lot different, right? We feel like we're being taxed like we're in higher levels, although we are considered middle-class borough ads. But here's the deal with this. You see, I live in Merritt, and they consider it a city, so we pay like city property tax here, right? So we're 2.5 hours from the major city, but they figured out ways in the little town I'm in with 7, 8, maybe 8,000 people during a rodeo or a good day at the stadium with a hockey game or something. Maybe 8,000 people on a good day, and the small business here, they have all these little fees and stuff. They get you in every angle in these small towns. All of which so common worries, guys. All of which leaves Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu just slightly ahead of most other Canadian communities when it comes to cost of living, and that has residents paying attention to what the federal parties vying to lend the country in upcoming election plan to do in terms of reducing the overhead. And if those in one of Canada's most affordable cities are feeling the financial squeeze, imagine other parts of the country, particularly in Greater Toronto, and area in BC's Lower Mainland, where living costs are nearly all categories have been on the rise for years, even as income has failed to keep pace. Income hasn't kept pace for 40 years, 35 years in most cases. Housing prices increased 44% nationally between 2013 and 2018, for example. Property taxes have also shifted northwards as provinces from the coast to coast have downloaded responsibilities and the costs that go with them to towns and municipalities. With various polls pointing to the rising cost of living as primary concern of voters heading into the next election, the parties have taken notes, says Eric Grainer. The Conservatives have made it a centerpiece in their campaign, while the New Democrats are also trying to capitalize on the anxiety and concerns about the new income inequality. I don't think it's income inequality. It's not really income inequality. Yes, there's an income inequality from the cost of living. Yes, there's a huge delta right here. It's huge. Okay, that's fine. Production, workloads have increased. People work more but make less. Yeah, I get it. But we sold out our major cities. Our major cities have been sold out to the highest bidders. That's how we're screwed, right? So a guy like myself living in the city is like, why am I paying for all this? What's the point, right? You know, why? I moved out. I stopped complaining. You know what I'm saying? I live in a small town. I got a small town stalker here. It's perfect. It's everything you want in a town. You got the gossip. It's great, you know? The Liberals, meanwhile, are pointing to housing policy changes, including program to provide first-time buyers with 5% towards a purchase of a home. You see, if you can't afford to get into the market, why would you take a 5% down from the government to pay back? Oh my God, if you can't afford to get in the market, that means you shouldn't be getting into this. If rates by some reason need to go up, because we're going to start, we haven't lowered rates, but eventually we're going to have to lower rates because either they're going to have to increase wages, okay? Something's going to have to happen because we are in a predicament right now where the Canadian proper is finished. And what do I mean by Canadian proper? People that have come from all over the world to build this country. The people that came in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, even some people in the 2000s that came. Well, after they closed immigration to Europe, and I think it was in the late 90s where they just completely closed immigration for Europeans to come in. But people come from all over the world. You know, people have come from Brazil, India, China, Japan, Russia, from everywhere. You know, in those previous decades to actually really make Canada, the idea of Canada, making it the idea that basically Canadians wake up in the morning to the greatness of being Canadian. I could tell you and I could vouch that Canadians, it's pains on my hands. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Canada was woo! That's why a lot of Europeans are looking at the door to go back. Lots of Europeans are looking to leave. Canada's mass exodus of Europeans is phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. A lot of people selling their homes to $2 million for a piece of crap, and they're moving to Portugal, Spain, Germany, France, wherever. They're moving back to Europe. Many across the country, even in the most affordable Saint Jean Relais, indicate they'll be looking for a candidate, party, or leader to help improve their financial situation. So in CBC's poll, for example, 1/3 of Canadian surveys said it was their number one concern. Family issues are most important to me for the election, Saint-Jean resident told CBC News while out with her family an annual end-of-summer fair. Meanwhile, some in Saint-Jean say they would settle for a government that has a plan to at least slow the rising costs of daily life. But they can't. They're going to have to. The only way to do that is because we're devaluing our currency more and more. Now, walking into these trade wars that we're in, and this uncertainty of what's happening with trade wars, and the cost, you know, companies will still continue to function like Walmarts and stuff, but they're just going to pass their tariffs onto you. things are just going to get more expensive, right? This all started in 1971. Everything traces back to 1971, right? So this is a huge problem, guys. And it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better until we actually start backing our currency with some sort of proper monetary policy that it could actually and start creating a macro process in place to start eliminating the money that's out there in Canadian currency and start destroying it all so that there's less money out there, right? Once debts are paid off, you can start destroying all this currency and getting rid of it and taking it off the books. This way, currency becomes more valuable, but right now there's no value. They lower rates again, they're going to start looking at negative territory, and I'm not going to get into that. I did many videos of that. Anybody who's going to help us maintain the quality of life is definitely going to have our vote, says Burrow. And with that, she returns to her backyard chickens, collecting the eggs they produce for her daily. Sometimes it's less tangible benefits that make a place desirable. So, guys, I'm a small town. I live in a small town, 7,000 people, 2 stoplights. Well, 3 if you want to count the one up on the hill. We got 3 stoplights in town. And let me tell you, this is what I want. This is what I want for my kids. Because we're in a position where it's okay for us to be here. It's okay for us to take a few losses here and there once in a while, financially. And, you know, things like that, you know. So this was actually posted today, guys. This is actually posted from the future because it's already past midnight out east. I kind of wanted to throw this out. I want to know what you guys think about this. This is a very important article, guys. Go ahead and share the video and get it out there. And if you guys want to support me, go ahead and I'm on Patreon here. If you guys want to pledge $1 a month and join the cause, $1 a month helps buying you mic, getting a 4K streaming, up to 4K streaming camera, getting you video card, getting you computer. So it's all going towards keeping this thing going, you know what I'm saying? And electricity, everything, it just all adds up. When you spend 40 hours online a week, it adds up a lot. And researching and all that stuff. I want to thank my Patreon supporters for backing me. It means a lot to me. It really does. And message me anytime. People message me on Patreon all the time. Message me anytime. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. God bless. And thanks for watching this. And share a video on YouTube of mine. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.